276 girls taken in the dark of night, some sleeping, some studying for exams, an act forbidden by Boko Haram. A few escaped, one brave enough to speak to CNN.
Yes, we are tribal. We ran in the bush.
Almost 4 months later, 223 girls from Chibok still gone.
For a moment, they were just another band of wanton killers determined to get their 15 minutes of global fame by making videos and showing their ability to execute innocents and kidnap young girls. But in almost record time, the group Boko Haram was on everyone's lips. Dozens of Nigerian girls taken from their home and forced to convert to Islam or die. The global outcry was astoundingly quick and seemed poised to create a sledgehammer of support that would root out these murderers and bring the girls home. Months later, the girls are still not home. And just within the last couple of days, Boko Haram has been called responsible for an attack that has left 36 people dead in a remote African town. And the death toll is rising. Welcome to MidPoint. Foreign policy and security analyst who served in the Departments of Defense and State, Fred Gedrich, joins us today. Fred, thank you so much for being here.
Delighted to be with you.
Fred, you were at an event this past week, a think tank for the Hudson Institute. There was a young girl there by the name of Saa, S-A-A, and she was telling her story. Apparently, from what we understand, there were no members of Congress there. There wasn't a whole lot of media support. The First Lady was not there, who had said that she was outraged at the kidnappings originally, and she supported the Bring Back Our Girls hashtag. It really seems to have gotten almost no notice whatsoever. Does no one care anymore? Is this just a story that's gone away in the 24/7 news cycle?
Well, I think the story has largely gone away, unfortunately, for the captive schoolgirls. It was heart-wrenching to sit there and watch Saa tell her story, her ordeal, and worse was the response of the Western world. It seems like they've frankly given up to the Boko Haram onslaught, and the Nigerian government seems incapable of defeating that al-Qaeda-linked group.
How many people were there, would you estimate? Did you see anybody of any official capacity at this conference for the Hudson Institute?
I saw no one of any official capacity. There were a few reporters. One from ABC News did ask a question. But the poor schoolgirl Saa, she wept as she recounted her story, and it was truly horrible.
Tell us, if you will, can you give us, I know that it's tough sometimes, but sometimes you have to push it in front of people's faces a little bit, and you have to make them face reality. Can you give us an idea of some of the things that you heard her talk about?
Yes. She was at a boarding school in Chibok, Nigeria, when Boko Haram entered and kidnapped the 276 girls. And they threatened them with death and slavery. In her case, she gave eyewitness accounts of them asking whether they were Muslim or Christian. And unfortunately, most of the girls, since it was a Christian boarding school, admitted they were Christian, and they were taken. And she was put on a flatbed truck and being escorted into the bush. And her and another student jumped off, one breaking a leg, and escaped. And she was teary-eyed and weeping as she told her story to the audience, and it was truly shocking. She was accompanied at that event by a human rights attorney, Emmanuel Okabe, himself a Nigerian, who went over there and tried to do his own investigation, and it was an exercise in futility, both with the government and his disappointment with the U.S. government at the U.S. Embassy in providing further details and doing a serious investigation on the whereabouts. At the time of the kidnapping, President Obama ordered a small contingent of AFRICOM troops in to do some surveillance and try to help the local government recover the girls. Unfortunately, I'm sad to report that almost all the girls are still, their whereabouts are unknown.
Fred, I'm going to say something that might seem cold to some people, but unfortunately it is reality. When we hear stories like this, there is so much evil around the world right now, certainly so many terrorists and people who are doing so many brutal things, that we now have ISIS, the Islamic State, the phony Islamic State, as I like to call it, and other groups as well. Certainly Al-Qaeda is still out there. People ask, though, when they hear stories like this, what are we supposed to do when we have so much on our plate right now and so many people looking to kill Americans? What is America supposed to do?
Well, I've traveled extensively throughout Africa, and frankly, the continent is a mess in general. I love going into villages. The people are friendly, but it's the governments that pose a problem. And what can the Western world do? If a Western government like Great Britain or France, and even the United States, even though we weren't a colonial power in Africa, tries to help, you run the risk of being sucked in to a real serious amount of problems, and they are plenty. The best course of action, which I explained in a Washington Times article I penned on the kidnapping a few months ago, is for the United States to try and work with the Nigerians and also that band of Western African countries, the Economic Community of West African States, the African Union, and the United Nations. Unfortunately, at the meeting on Friday I attended, I asked how much help those groups and government were providing, and the answer was nil. It's shocking. And the best advice I have for President Obama is when he goes to the United Nations in the next week or two, he should make this a point in his speech, and he should challenge the United Nations to do more, because that's its very purpose, is to bring peace and stability to the world. Unfortunately, those critics of the UN, myself included, know what the end result usually is. It's nothing. But the president, I believe, has an obligation to at least put the global spotlight back on the problems being associated with these schoolgirl kidnappings, and hopefully the world will have a conscience and do something to help them.
I've got about 2 minutes left here. I want you to listen. This is Nigeria's foreign minister earlier this month saying that Nigeria's neighbors, according to him, will play a greater role in stopping Boko Haram and rescuing the girls that are still in captivity. Here's that soundbite.
The participants noted with regret that in spite of efforts from Nigeria and international partners, the Chibok girls were still in captivity. They reiterated the need to mobilize support to end their captivity. In this connection, they also called for support to end sexual violence and called on all countries to criminalize it.
Fred, is it fair to say that all this is words and this government and the other governments in Africa right now are simply much too chaotic and couldn't do this on their own if they tried?
Well, I don't think Nigeria can. It's, when it comes to population, the largest country in Africa, 177 million. And here's the problem. 50% of that 177 million are Muslim. 40% of that 177 million are Christian. And Nigeria currently has a Christian president, and the Muslims really don't like that situation. I'm fearful that the Muslims, the radical Muslims, have infiltrated all segments of the government, the military, and control a large swath of land in northeast Nigeria. And it's going to require a monumental effort to stabilize the country. And the country is when you look at its problems, its per capita GDP is only $2,800. That's a lot for Boko Haram to work on. Its literacy rate, 61%, and females are a lot less. And here's the real shocker. The life expectancy of Nigerians is only 53 years. I don't believe most Western people can even comprehend that.
I don't believe they can, certainly, but we've at least been able in this point to bring some light back to the situation itself and hopefully to get people to think about it again. Unfortunately, I tend to agree with you as far as the United Nations is concerned. Fred Gedrich, thank you so much for sharing the tale. I hope we talk again.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Later this hour, the call from Democrats for the president to unleash his not-so-secret weapon for the midterms and beyond. That and so much more coming up right here on MidPoint, where every day we question everything.